Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Chris Byrne, who's the MD of Legacy Minerals, who are exploring for high-grade gold, copper, and base metals deposits in the world-class Lachlan Fold Belt in New South Wales, Australia. Chris has an electrical and environmental background and started his career with Anglo American in the coalfields, New South Wales and Queensland, and has been at the helm of Legacy Minerals since 2017. He's going to give us an overview of the company, how their journey has been so far, and what they're looking to achieve in the future. So that's welcome, Chris, to the podcast. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to you, your audience.
And I appreciate your time as well. I know you're an active listener as well. And before we went live, there was a few episodes that you've been listening to, and hence you approached me and decided that you wanted to come on the podcast. So appreciate your support as well. So, as we always start these podcasts off, just wondered if you can tell us a little bit about your career, your background, before we go into speaking more about Legacy Minerals.
Sure. I probably haven't had the traditional, exploration background of a lot of, MDs of small junior companies. As you mentioned, I'm an electrical engineer. So I went into coal mining straight out of university, which wasn't something I initially had planned on, but I think, as most Australians, there's a significant allure to the salaries that the mining companies were paying back in the day. So I spent a lot of my time in the projects maintenance space in both open cut and underground coal mines. So got a good appreciation for the later stages of the mining sort of life cycle. So pretty far from the sort of area that we're currently in at the moment, which is at the junior stage, the generative early stage process. But what that sort of mining background gave was a real depth of systems, processes, and I guess looking at projects, both a capital and an operational sort of perspective, what works, what doesn't. So it's a broad applicability of engineering skills that from leaving the mining sector, I came and worked in the public service in the railway sector. So I was actually working the heavy rail, automating the rail networks in Sydney. And at the same time, myself and my business partner, Tom Waugh, who's the other co-founder and executive director of Legacy Minerals, we actually went to school together, high school, and we went to university, and he's got a hard rock mineral exploration background. And while we were working other jobs, we started to peg land as a bit of a hobby. It was a bit of a side thing, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until we listed the company in 2021. So I think we were 31 when we listed, and that was our first ever gig as a director or, being involved with an ASX company. So quite a rapid acceleration from no full-time employees to, within 6 months being a fully-fledged listed ASX company. So it's been a rapid sort of, couple of years of growth for us.
Yeah, no, good. And you obviously were in the coal industry initially, and now you moved over to sort of precious and base metals. I know obviously it's more in exploration, and like you said, you were in projects before. But how have you, and the reason why I ask this question is because I used to recruit within Australia. So when I lived in Queensland, I used to recruit in the coalfields of mainly Queensland and sometimes New South Wales. And every time I was recruiting various roles, companies didn't want to bring in people from base or precious metals into the coal industry. And then vice versa, when I was recruiting for base metals and precious metals companies, they tend to not consider coal people. How have you found that transition from being in coal and now in obviously base and precious metals?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and probably the biggest difference is the scale. Like when you're working in the coal industry, you're talking big budgets, big tonnage, big operations. So that's, and big money. There's not really much opportunities in the coal industry to effectively, junior exploration company is a bit like an IT sort of startup. It's easy to start it up based off a concept or an idea. There's just no real opportunity to do that in coal necessarily. And there isn't a lot of mix between the two. Like you find that professionals tend to stick in their sort of their realms. And it's not until maybe you get towards the financing sort of brokerage sort of side where it becomes a bit irrespective of people's backgrounds. But certainly at the early stages, there's all a bit of a rivalry between coal geologists and hard rock geos, and that generally there's a frowned upon in terms of the boring geology associated with coal and the excitement that comes from your precious metal and that sort of discovery. So, and it's been an interesting sort of dynamic between the two, and still quite segregated, to this day, as you sort of say.
Yeah, certainly. So just wondering if you can give us an overview, obviously, of Legacy Minerals. Like you said, you started up the company in 2017. You've obviously been through a bit of a journey. So I just wonder if you can just give us an overview of the company.
Yeah, so we've got around 2,500 square kilometres of exploration licenses currently. So a pretty significant package of land, and that started off really at Cobar. And for those people that know Cobar, there's some fantastic mines out there, home to Australia's highest grade copper mine, which recently was sold by Glencore. You've got the Peak gold mines out there that have been operating for some time. But back in 2017, there was just a lot of free ground around New South Wales, so it sort of coincided with the New South Wales Geological Survey, so a body of the government, coming up with a new digital titles management system, a new graphical information GIS system called MinView. So all of a sudden, in 2017, the government have transitioned from people submitting paper applications for licenses to a digital system and opening up all the pre-competitive data of all the previous exploration reports across all of New South Wales. So in a sort of a bit of a light switch moment, they've just unleashed a huge amount of data freely available into the market. And being 5 years out of university, we just tore through that data and came up with what we consider to be a great package of tenements. And as we gradually added to the portfolio, we got bigger and bigger, and it was harder and harder to sustain that as a private exploration company. So in sort of early 2021, we made the call to move towards an IPO, and that's really to fund the costly part of exploration, which is your drilling. And we were successful in getting an IPO away in 2021, and that was sort of, I guess, the start of our life as a publicly listed company. And that's brought its challenges and its rewards, but certainly one of the rewards you get from that is the hard work that you're putting into your projects are now in the public space. So we've got a focus on gold and copper predominantly, and particular systems around low sulfidation epithermals and porphyry systems. So we're looking for, we don't have any tenements really looking for lithium or rare earths. We're quite focused on those assets, which aren't getting a lot of love in the market at the moment, gold and copper stocks, particularly in the junior space. But we're focused on those fundamentals, and we're certainly seeing some great results across. We've got 6 projects that we own currently. One, we've got a JV with Newmont, and one, we've got an exploration license alliance with an artificial intelligence company, Earth AI. So we've got a bit of a hybrid exploration discovery sort of approach to our projects.
Yeah. Obviously, you've mentioned that you've got 6 projects within the Lachlan Fold belt of New South Wales. Why does the company find this region so attractive for mineral exploration?
Yeah, it's Australia's premier porphyry copper gold district. It's home to, we like it for several reasons. The first was it's easy to explore. So that means a company like Legacy, we can peg all our licenses at cost us $0 an application fee, and you can then start to add value immediately with the work. So it's an easy entry. There's good pre-competitive data sets. And importantly, it's a jurisdiction that, produces some world-class mines. So you're talking about Australia's largest gold mine, Katie Ridgeway, 50 million ounces gold, I think maybe 10 million tonnes of copper. So that ranks up as one of the world's biggest operating gold mines. You've got Cow, 15 million ounces. owned by Evolution. So two very successful gold mines. There's North Parks. There's just a wealth of the Cobar operating mines. So a good district in terms of operating assets. It's a safe jurisdiction. So there's, when you look at, global jurisdictions, Australia, Canada, and the US, some of your top tier jurisdictions to explore in, so that we like that fact. There's the little sovereign risk. The government's not going to turn around and do anything crazy in terms of nationalising, assets. The other thing that we see in New South Wales as well, it's a big state, so it's a vast search space, in which there's often a conception that everything that you can't find anything new because it's all been explored for in New South Wales, and it's just not true. We've certainly found the work that we've done has uncovered some fantastic mineral systems that have previously sat unrecognised. So we see it as a great opportunity to explore, and it's also, you're right near Sydney, so we're able to run exploration out of local towns around New South Wales. It's low cost. There's no wet season, year-round exploration access. So overall, it is a great place to explore, and we're seeing some recent mines come into, get their final approvals as well. So we're seeing that, development pathway sort of start to tick that box as well.
Obviously, you're a relatively young company, and you, as you mentioned, recently listed on the ASX back in September 2021. What operating strategy has the company set for itself, and how has that strategy evolved?
Yeah, that's a great question. The fundamentals that we're focused on as a company is low cost, high impact exploration. So we're looking to do work, and that's particularly evolved with the tightening of the capital markets and the access to funds. Is we see the ability to add a significant amount of value by doing generative works across our projects. So that's generating targets, and that involves a lot of boots on ground exploration. So real fundamental stuff, which often gets overlooked in the junior space. People chase grade through drilling to try and get excitement and generate that sort of interest in the market. We're focused on building, district scale potential in our projects. So we've got that strategy that we're in it for the long term, and we also have we call it a hybrid discovery model, where we have projects that we partner with companies. I mentioned Newmont and Earth AI. So that's a funding model that allows for our shareholders to get discovery exposure without having to raise funds or dilute our shareholders. And then we also have our 100% owned projects as well, which gives direct upside. So our operational approach is to sort of balance that risk. Exploration is it's a risk game, and the probability of a lot of companies succeeding is quite low when you look at the historical rates of exploration success. By balancing out that risk profile, we can give our shareholders upside, but also more certainty that we might be able to take a project through discovering and through to production.
Last week you announced that nickel copper sulfides and the PGEs are being found during exploration work at the Fontenoy Project. I think I pronounced that right, in New South Wales. Well, what potential do you think the company has uncovered there?
Yeah, we're really excited about that. It's sort of, when we look at our projects, all of our portfolio, most of them are virtually greenfield projects. So we're not, they're not recycled projects that spun out of some company or picked up by another company. So we're picking them up. They're relatively fresh. Fontenoy is probably one of the projects that's had the most drilling and the most work done on it. And there's been a real focus on the porphyry copper gold story there. So great, shallow, low grade copper hits, 70 meters, 79 meters at 0.3% copper from surface, across quite a long strike. So people have worked on that previously, downgraded the potential and haven't had much success. The partnership that we struck with Earth AI really changed the thinking on that project in terms of the approach. Instead of focusing on the eastern side of the project area, using their sort of AI generative models, they were spending all their time on the western side, which was the relatively underlooked and underexplored area. So seeing virtually no drilling, limited sort of historical work, limited mapping. And they found nickel sulfides. So that's the first time that nickel copper sulfides have been found in that region. And that's important because there aren't many known occurrences of nickel sulfide, copper nickel sulfide PGE systems in New South Wales. So we're yet to drill it, and Earth AI will be doing that as part of their Alliance framework. But that's a real, it's a bit like our moment we had at Bauloora when we sort of recognised the potential. This is our Newmont JV project. That was a bit of a technical breakthrough in terms of understanding that these systems could exist in New South Wales. And now we're seeing that open-minded exploration project Fontenoy demonstrate that, hey, we might have a large nickel copper PGE system here that no one has recognised previously in New South Wales, which is not known for its nickel. The WA guys, the Western Australians get it. There's a lot of nickel stuff out there, and people think about Julimar and what that's done for Chalice's, the big nickel copper PGE discovery of date, but it's just not well known about in New South Wales at all.
Yeah. Obviously, you've got an interesting alliance with Earth AI, and I suppose, why is that partnership unique, and how's that progressing? And I suppose what value do they add within the obviously joint venture agreement?
Yeah, so they there's a few artificial intelligence exploration companies out there on the market at the moment. There's the big one over in America, which is Cobalt, and that's backed by a lot of these Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, these green funds, and they've sort of, they're like quasi exploration IT companies, really. They've got a bit of a different approach to it. Earth AI is unique in itself that they're a company that not only generates artificial intelligence data sets around prospectivity, but then they've got the exploration team to do the groundwork, to verify and validate that. And they've got their own drill rigs, so then they'll drill them. What that means for legacy is that they wear a lot of risk in that Earth AI. The structure of the agreement is that they're able to earn a royalty if they make a discovery. So that's a qualifying intercept in the drilling. What it means for us is that we can let them do their work. We don't have to. We can focus on our other projects, which, there is a bandwidth constraint when you look at a small exploration company and running multiple exploration fronts at once. And we're already seeing the fruits of that. It took some time for Earth AI's. They got this vertically integrated business model. So again, very much like an IT company. So they're quite unique to that approach in the Australian market. There is another company out Sensor that does a similar sort of system, but it's a pay for a product type service. So it's AI as a service, whereas an Earth AI backing their product, that they're hoping that their models are correct and that their drilling and their groundwork gets them a result that delivers a return for them. So very little risk for our shareholders, but we see significant upside if they hit a significant system in the work that they're doing.
The Bauloora Project has emerged as the company's flagship exploration prospect in recent times, and obviously is now part of a joint venture with Newmont. What attracted Newmont to the project, and what are the terms of your agreement?
Yeah, pronounced Bauloora, which is catches a lot of people. It is we sort of had Bauloora. When you have a lot of projects, what it allows in your portfolio is good competitive tension between them. So when we IPO'd, we didn't really call any one project our flagship. We sort of had a few that we were running parallel exploration programs, but quite quickly we started to narrow down that Bauloora was something special that you don't find these systems often in New South Wales. So we're seeing great rock textures on surface. If you look at the background, that's just a bit of the rock library that we've done out there. So we started to really catalogue what started to grow into a district scale system of significant anomalism. We were putting out these announcements to the market around, good generative work that we're doing. I talked about that fundamental geology that, that the stock market and the mums and dads don't necessarily reward, but certainly the majors can appreciate. They know what a good rock means and what a good, significant geochem anomalies mean in soils. And so we just progressed that project along, and the opportunities sort of came out, from that public image, putting those announcements out to the ASX. As you would have seen recently, there's a lot of M&A activity occurring in the mining sector. And that's all the way from, you know, the major deals like Newmont and Newcrest, but down to smaller players like BHP and Rio buying small projects around New South Wales and elsewhere in Australia. So it's a real sort of companies looking to replenish that global shortage that they see in the gold space, the copper space, the nickel space, has sort of meant that it's opened the doors up to smaller companies like us. And so Bauloora really, we demonstrated that blue sky potential, the significance of the vein field, and the scale of the project, which, you know, we were, you know, considered it to be a globally significant project from the sheer scale of it, and Newmont agreed. And you know, you just have to look at Newmont's global portfolio, and it's quite apparent just how early stage this project is. So when you look at what deals they've done with other companies in the public space out there, this is probably one of their earliest stage joint ventures in their entire global portfolio. So it's obviously a great endorsement for the prospectivity there. And we really, the partnership's going great with Newmont. We're you know, it's a discovery focused partnership. So we've both got our you know, eye on the same prize. The deal structure is 15 million over 8 years, or within an 8-year period, and that'll give Newmont the right to earn 75% of the project. What we really see as a significant benefit to our shareholders is not only just partnering with a tier one mining company that, you know, mines these types of systems and has done for decades. I think Newmont's largest low sulfidation epithermal mine is, you know, Sierra Negro in South America. So you're talking circa 10 million ounces. You know, they're targeting that to get to 500,000 ounces per annum. You know, that's what Newmont are looking for in their sort of you know, in that tier one epithermal low sulfidation space. We've got access to that expertise, their systems and their knowledge. But importantly, at the back end, it transitions from should the geology work out, it transitions from a exploration joint venture to a mining joint venture. And Newmont will actually, for an additional 5%, so Legacy would have 20% at this point, if we elect to it, finance the Bauloora project through to production. So that's loan carried through to production, not another dollar that needs to get put in for Legacy to have potentially 20% ownership of what may be a world-class mine with Newmont. So we see that as a significant, you know, benefit for shareholders, and hopefully that's a journey's a quicker one than a longer one. But you know, we're out on the ground aggressively, you know, exploring that at the moment.
What upcoming activities do you have planned for Bauloora Project now that obviously the JV is in place? Yeah, so we've announced to the market that we've started a AMT survey. So that's an auto magnetotellurics, essentially a geophysical program, a bit like IP, which people are a bit more familiar with, induced polarization. But we're looking at the top levels of a system here. So we're seeing gold at surface, and that's what, you know, attracted us to that project and, you know, helped that, you know, that discovery pace. This program is designed to look deeper into the system. So the deeper you get, you know, there's a particular part of these epithermal systems called the boiling zone, and that's where your bonanza grades of precious metal, gold and silver reside. They're very controlled from a zonation type system. This ANT survey is going to highlight, you know, hopefully large zones of resistivity that will correspond to these feeding structures. That program is going to cover 81 line kilometres. So I think it's a significant program, and there's not many of these done in New South Wales because these systems aren't very, very common. So that's going to be fantastic to see those results. We've got 7,000 line kilometres of aerial magnetics and radiometrics getting done. They'll feed into drill targets, and we'll be looking to drill under the JV the Breccia Cinta prospect towards the end of this year. So that's written within the actual JV mandate. So it's going to be an exciting couple of months to see these high quality data sets feed into the work that we've done and bring out some really good looking drill targets to test. Earlier this year, Legacy acquired the Black Range project, which shares similarities to the Bauloora project. What are some of these similarities, and why is Legacy excited about the potential Black Range?
Yeah, when we were exploring Bauloora, so middle of last year, and we're starting to realise that hey, this thing has some serious scale on it, and some serious potential, and it's been overlooked. To sort of phrase how that opportunity has developed. We pegged that ground for $0, 2 and a bit years ago, and within two and a bit years, that includes the COVID impact. But within 2 and a bit years, minus a year for COVID, we've managed to attract the world's biggest gold miner to come in at such an early stage project. So we sort of realised that, hey, these systems, there surely has to be another Bauloora out in New South Wales that sat there just as unrecognised. And sure enough, we pegged Black Range. We actually pegged it last year, and we kept it a little bit quiet. We weren't quite certain what was going to happen with Bauloora and what that might look like. But earlier this year, we extended that license there. So Black Range is about 65 kilometres from Bauloora. It's in the same age rocks as Bauloora. It's about 3 times the scale. So Bauloora being around 300 square kilometres, and Black Range is over 900 square kilometres of volcanics. So you're talking a huge, huge system. Like Bauloora, we've pegged the district, so there's no other explorer that holds any relevant or significant ground down there as well. So again, we've got that district scale control. And we saw beyond sort of the geological comparisons, and this is where I guess it's a good partnership with Tom, myself, and the rest of the board, is that mixed skill set means you're looking at different aspects of the project. Tom has a focus on the geology. I'm looking at the land access, the infrastructure, the logistical considerations that, moving, I guess, something that's from a concept, to an implementation phase. And that's often where you see exploration companies, falter or sort of lack the skill sets to bridge those two sort of worlds. Because often exploration is a logistical problem as much as it is a geology problem. And it ticked all those boxes. And one of the things that we saw that was really interesting is just the exploration history and the parallels between the two projects. Bauloora was held by a company called North Limited back in the early 1990s. And North Limited had 2 big epithermal systems in New South Wales, Cow and Bauloora. So when North Limited were having discovery success at the Cow mine, which I mentioned before, grew to a 15 million ounce system, they stopped all work at Bauloora. And then North Limited got taken over by Rio Tinto. And then I think eventually Barrick ended up with Cow before it changed hands to Evolution. And so in the meantime, Bauloora went through its changing of hands for various companies, but the work had sort of ceased. When you go to Black Range, there's another major company that was exploring Black Range, and that was Newcrest. And then Newcrest dropped it in 1992. And for people that know the discovery story at Cadia, that was the year that they made their Cadia discovery. Again, the 15 million ounce behemoth up there at Orange. That was the last time any company has stepped foot on what we consider to be the highest priority part of the Black Range prospect, Sugarbag Hill. So we've been on there last month, and that's the first time anyone has stepped a foot on that ground in 30 years. So in terms of, we like to look at why does the opportunity still exist there, and you have to convince, not yourself, but also your shareholders and the market that, it's worth putting your money to a project. And when you start to see those factors, no exploration for 30 years, limited historical exploration, one of the things that we saw that was extremely encouraging is that Newcrest dated the Black Range project to be the same age mineralisation as Bauloora. So you've got 2 systems that are formed at the same time. What the relationships are, we're not quite sure, because again, we're at the frontier here in terms of these types of systems in New South Wales. Hence why we thought it was really important to partner with a major, is that we're not in a district that you can look up the road and there's multiple discoveries or mines of these types of systems. We are there pushing that frontier in terms of that discovery profile, and that partnership really does help there. So we see, we're not calling it Bauloora 2.0 at this point, but we're certainly seeing, I guess, all of the opportunities that we were able to capitalise on at Bauloora, at Black Range. So we're doing work there currently, rock chipping, low cost, high impact work that we did at Bauloora. So hopefully we can do it in half the time that it sort of took us to Bauloora, now that we've sort of honed our skills. But yeah, we're really quite excited just around that opportunity. And then, when you sit back again and just look at the sheer scale of the system there, and epithermal occurrences that strike for, 30 kilometers between them. It's a big project, and we're certainly excited around the prospects that are going to come out of it.
I've got two more questions. I work obviously in the international market, recruiting expats around the world. And I suppose the feeling is Australia and mining is more, everything's done out of WA. I wonder and I wonder if you give your perception of, and what's your uniqueness mining in New South Wales? Because like I said, everyone that I come across are predominantly out of WA. They're either in iron ore, some gold, or they could be out of Mount Isa, for instance. But not too much talk about New South Wales. So what highlights would you say New South Wales has as a mining jurisdiction?
Yeah, well, I think you almost semi-answered the question. It's like that overlooked factor. We're talking about back to sort of Black Range a bit to sort of highlight why what does New South Wales have to offer, and as a jurisdiction it hasn't had the exploration work. Like if you were to say to someone that you can walk out and make a new outcropping discovery of a gold-bearing vein, it's been so worked over WA that and it's also a lot more difficult for juniors to get involved. So there's a real opportunity there. So to go out to areas that have literally had no exploration done on them previously. And I think that's where the discoveries, you increase your probability of discovery, on these new greenfield projects, and they bring a level of excitement to the market. So we're bringing fresh projects out there that people haven't looked at, or haven't looked at for 30 years. And I think that's a big point of difference from the WA sort of space. What is also, it is a challenge though, because most of the money in mining does come from WA, and so it does sort of stick within those WA circles. So it is harder as a New South Wales focused company, and we only do New South Wales. It's a strong point of ours. Like we can't, as a company, afford to waste our resources learning to operate within another jurisdiction in terms of the titles, the licenses, the mobilisation of personnel. We save a lot of money by having focused field officers servicing our tenements, and you get a lot more bang for buck from that perspective. But it's an underlooked province, but with huge endowment, and it just sort of flies under the radar. And even I think the people in New South Wales don't appreciate that. You go out to Orange and you ask one in every two people out there, and they wouldn't even know that Australia's biggest gold mine is pumping away circa $2 billion or $4 billion into the economy every year through their sales. So it sort of it's a big economy too, so it flies under the radar in that regard. That's where we see that opportunity, underlooked, and it's underexplored.
Yeah, certainly. And lastly, what's the outlook for the remainder of the year and going into 2024?
Yeah, it's going to be busy. I mentioned all the stuff that we're doing at Bauloora, at Black Range, culminating in a drill program funded with Newmont out at Bauloora. Earth AI will be moving towards drilling down at Fontenoy. So we're talking about two greenfields proof of concept drill campaigns into emerging discovery districts. So that's going to be quite exciting to sort of see those results come out. In the meantime, we're doing generative work across the remainder of our portfolio as well. So we might look to do a drill campaign at Black Range towards the end of the year, or out at Cobar, which is again a bit of a treasure in the portfolio that often gets overlooked even by us when you look at our other great projects. It's often hard to decide where to go and where to drill, but we're going to be quite busy from now to the end of the year, and it's an interesting time in the market as we've seen the exploration decline. We're the busiest we've ever been in terms of the programs of work that we're getting done across our tenement and the budgets, particularly with Bauloora. We're doing huge geophysical programs, big scale, tier one, type company, major company exploration programs that just as a junior, you just would never be able to do. So we're expecting that to really deliver some fantastic results. So yeah, looking forward to quite a busy year.
Yeah. Chris, really appreciate your time coming onto the podcast and telling us about obviously Legacy Minerals. And it sounds like you've got a couple of great gems there, a couple of great projects that obviously are early stage, but have so much potential. And like you said, you're joint venturing with some tier one mining companies. So it's great to hear. If our audience has any questions or they want to follow your story, how can they go about doing that? What social media platforms are you on?
Yeah, so we're pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter for those that are in those sort of spaces. But we do have an investor hub on our website as well that you can access all the announcements. And we try to. I won't apologise for making our ASX announcements too technical. So sometimes they take a little bit of discernment to walk through, but we like to keep our shareholders updated with our progress and what we're doing as well. So certainly there's a wealth of information out there for people to watch and follow.
Yeah, and we include those in the show notes accompanying this episode as well for easy access. So, like I said, really appreciate your time. Perhaps you want to come on next year and give us an update on the progress of both projects. And you never know, there might be some other projects in the pipeline as well.
That sounds great, Rob.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. And appreciate your continued support. Please share this episode out to all people, ex-colleagues around the world, wherever they are. There is obviously mining outside of WA, as Chris has highlighted, New South Wales. There is obviously a lot going on. And also share this episode with people outside of the mining industry. As Chris alluded to, there's one of the biggest gold mines in New South Wales that are generating billions of dollars for the state of New South Wales. And a lot of people may not even know that. So appreciate if you can share these episodes and this particular episode to people outside the mining in Australia as well. It helps with our whole image of mining and what it does for our country and for obviously mankind and evolution in terms of how we develop as people within our world. So appreciate your continued support, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.